We look at all the possible harms and real harms for our children. It is easy to be in a place of fear, but as a parent of three children of my own, I don't want to be fear led. I want to be love led.
Welcome to the Healthy Screen Habits Podcast. I'm Hillary Wilkinson. Whether you're starting your parenting journey with a newborn or looking to connect with your teen on technology, let's learn some new healthy screen habits together. We hear so much about the effect of FOMO on users of all ages in regards to social media. FOMO, which is an acronym for the phrase fear of missing out, happens when we see others on a social media feed having fun together, doing something collectively, or just kind of that feeling that others are having like more fun, better lives, experiencing better things than you are. And this is where my guest today enters the chat. She is a proponent of JOMO, which is kind of the antithesis of FOMO. JOMO stands for the phrase joy of missing out. And I love this sort of turning something on its head and giving it a shake. She's the award-winning author of The Joy of Missing Out, Finding Balance in a Wired World, the host of the JOMO Cast, which is a podcast, and regularly shares her insights about technology and our daily lives in international media, including in the New York Times, Psychology Today, and Harper's Bazaar. I can't wait to learn more about JOMO and how we can all live a little more joyfully. Welcome to Healthy Screen Habits, Christina Crook.
Thank you so much for having me.
Christina, what can you tell us about JOMO and how did you come to realize that it needs amplification?
Mm-hmm. So, yes, JOMO is the joy of missing out. And I define it as the joy of missing out on the right things to make space for what matters most. And of course, that's, different for each and every person. And I love the phrasing of JOMO because it is, as you said in the introduction, a joyful frame on all of the things we can enter into if we use our technology more mindfully or we disconnect entirely for portions of our day or portions of our week or portions of our year to reconnect to the real world and find a better balance. So my own journey with JOMO. So I have been in the digital well-being space. I would honestly can say from the very beginning, one of those sort of pioneering voices. My first book, The Joy of Missing Out, came out in 2015. So, kind of ahead of the curve for better or worse. The early voices. I remember 90% of my job at that point was sort of convincing people that there was a problem. We've come across a huge threshold now in terms of consensus that there's a huge need for better parameters and people are seeking solutions. But my first book was originally titled, interestingly, Digital Detox. And as some of your listeners might know, especially given where you're based, there is or was, no, I think it's rebooted now, Camp Grounded in California. And they actually trademarked the term digital detox. And so anyways, long story short, we had to pivot and change the name quite last minute with that original book. And we did choose the title, The Joy of Missing Out. And I have been thankful each and every day for that change because it completely transformed the conversation from a doing without, right, a removal of something and into a positive frame on all the joys we can enter into. So that's where JOMO came from and what it means to me.
I love how that reframing is such a positive thing because it's so hard. Sometimes I feel like it's very easy to get trapped into that downward spiral when we're studying the effects of our digital world. And so I think it things happen sometimes without plans, but sometimes it all works out. So
Yeah,
you
I think if I could just jump on that for a second, I think as parents, it is very easy to default to fear. I know it is for me, and it's actually become a discipline to look for the good, to look for a joyful lens, a positive lens on things. And I need to give credit to my original publisher, New Society Publishers, because their whole mandate is, tools for a better society. And so I couldn't just focus on the harms, it had to be a solution based focused. And so that's, what kind of changed that trajectory for me. I think for a lot of people, it's easier to just see. I don't know, there's technophiles and technophobes. I definitely fall way into the technophobe category, like a very self-described Luddite. I would be very happy in simpler times. And so it's very easy for me to see the negative implications of any new technology as opposed to the potential positive benefits. And then we look at all the possible harms and real harms for our children. It is easy to be in a place of fear, but as a parent of three children of my own, I don't want to be fear led. I want to be love led and inspire my kids to a better way of living. I want them to look at the world as a place that is just a good place that they can trust people. We can put our trust in people. Of course, we have to be wise in that decision making, but I think that's really important because there is already so much fear in our world. And so that's a discipline for me to push myself into that kind of lens.
Yeah, and such a healthy one. So you teach the JOMO method as an action-oriented digital well-being program. Can you kind of like go through a few of the components of that for us?
So it's a 4 module course. It's very self-directed. We've run live cohorts of it, which I really enjoyed. We'll probably do again, but it's a wonderful program. It goes through, the first module is all about really understanding all of the persuasive technology mechanisms right at work. We go into the hook model. We get into all of, the ways in which big tech is intentionally creating platforms to be addictive, and just understanding that baseline is incredibly important. Then we get into the second module, which is really about identifying your own joys and goals, and then looking very concretely at your active screen time. And then in the third module, we're bringing those goals and those values into alignment with our screen use. And then the fourth module is all about navigating technology for life. So making long-term social commitments, making long-term environmental changes, both in your physical and digital environments to support those changes in the long haul. And just like one sort of practical piece from that final part of the course, the power of social commitments. I love this one in particular, and what I mean by that is, so Scandinavia ranks almost every year at the top of the world happiness
Right.
report, right, year over
Hmm.
year. And one of the reasons why Scandinavia ranks so consistently high is because per capita, they, on average, a Scandinavian has, say, 4 to 5 standing social commitments in their calendar every week. So they go
Oh,
swimming in the sea together. They have their craft club. They have their book club. They go to choir. Like, they have these standing commitments already in their calendar. So it's at the end of their workday, they're not thinking to themselves, should I reach out to a friend? Should I do a thing? Or should I just, roll over from working on, from home and then switching to another screen on our couch, my couch, and binge watch? They have a commitment that they've already made in their calendar and with other people that are expecting them to be there. And the power of that is huge in terms of our overall wellness and yeah, over our overall well-being. And so that's one of the things we really encourage our students in that last module, is to make some really concrete social commitments, and sticking with those. I'm a rower. I don't row by myself. I row in a crew. And simply because that commitment forces me to get up on all the mornings I don't want to get up and schlep myself down to the dock and get in that boat, because if I don't, I'm letting a bunch of other people down. And there's huge value in that. So that's a kind of a high level look at the course.
yeah. And you talk about the value being a high level value. And I have read happiness studies that have even said that joining a social group, such as your rowing group or something like that, has the equivalent in the happiness index, if you will, is the equivalence of receiving like a $15,000 raise at work. I mean, when you put it
Whoa.
like on a monetary, exactly. Well, I mean, this is after you reach a certain economic levels. Clearly, if you're somebody who's making, $18,000 a year, a 15,000, I mean, that would be a very different thing. But yeah, no, I mean, when you
Hmm.
after you meet basic needs, then you come in and join having that social connection, like you say. So that, I mean, that is motivation enough for some people to, form a book club or look out for something that they could do in their community. So, yeah. So I also, when I've, in getting ready to chat with you, I've kind of geeked out on all things Christina Crook. And one of the things that I've heard you talk about previously is the importance of digital housekeeping or digital decluttering. And can you talk about that a little bit?
Yeah, I mean, our beloved Marie Kondo, right, got rich and famous by the teaching people the magic of tidying up. So, same sort of principle in terms of sparking joy in our digital life, really regularly decluttering our digital spaces. It's a thing that we all kind of know we need to do. It's funny, my dad was just visiting from Vancouver, British Columbia, and he was on his phone and he had time to kill. I mean, he's retired, he's got time on his hands, but he's like going through his contacts, being like, teach me how to delete contacts. Like I have all of these additional contacts. Like someone like him who has a lot of extra time, sure, maybe he'll go about doing these things. But for most of us, we know we should clean up our contacts. We should unsubscribe from email. We're probably following a bunch of social media accounts that like who the heck even knows what they are anymore. Like some of them are really toxic and not adding value to our lives anymore. So the digital decluttering workshops, which I'm actually running one this Thursday. This is going to come out afterwards, but you can go to my website, experiencejomo.com, and there's free resources there. And we run the webinars pretty often. But it's just a live 1 hour block where we just sort of systematically go through a simple rubric for unfollowing content to clear away digital clutter and make space for what matters most. And it's pretty fun. There's really funny memes in there. We try to have a good time. There's lots of chat. We're like high-fiving in the chat about like, oh, like, some people unfollow 50 accounts, right? And they're like little 5 minute block they're given. And it's very empowering. And I think, and just very practically, I'll share one of the things. So in the social media section, we get people to ask in sequence. The first question is, who is this? Do you know immediately who or what this is? If you can't answer what it is, immediately unfollow them. Okay. Just unfollow. If you can't answer who or what it is, then you get to the second one, which is this important? Is this important to me right now? Is there value right now to me in this content? If there isn't, unfollow. If there is, then you can move on to the third question. The third question is, do I want to bring this with me? It could be true that you know what it is and that it's important, but do you need to bring this content into the future with you? It was true that there was value for you at some point in time because that's why you followed that account. Maybe you were planning a big trip and you followed a bunch of accounts related to a big planning. Maybe that trip didn't happen. So now you're looking at those accounts feeling really bad that you didn't go on that trip, right? Like it's all this trickle down effect of all this content that's coming in front of our eyeballs every day. So just consistently cleaning those spaces up to sort of spark joy. And one of the things we do in the desktop cleanup is we actually create a joy folder. So all those things that you've got kicking around all over your computer, just putting them in one folder and you can kind of just dip in there every once in a while when you need a pickup. So that's the digital decluttering.
Nice, nice. We have to take a short break, but when we come back, I will be asking Christina Crook about the work she's doing at university campuses and combating some of the current social challenges of our time. We love what we do, and we wouldn't be able to do it without the generous donations provided by our listeners and followers. We want to extend special thanks to the Doctors Petty for their unwavering support of the podcast and organization. If you'd like to make a difference and contribute to the education and empowerment of families building their healthiest screen habits, please go to healthyscreenhabits.org, find the Take Action tab, and scroll down and click the donate button. 100% of your donation will be used to spread awareness and bring families the tools they need to develop healthy screen habits. I'm speaking with Christina Crook, the creator and host of the JOMO Cast podcast, where she interviews leaders embracing the joy of missing out to thrive in a rapidly changing world. Christina was listed as a change maker in All Tech is Humans Responsible Guide to Tech. And Christina, you told us that you enjoy rowing. What are other things that you like to do offline?
Ooh, I like doing I cross stitch. Okay.
Oh.
It's it's a sort of a grandma type thing. I do those like just basic little wooden rings, they're little kits and I get through them and when I finish one I just give them away. And I am in a craft club and we get together once a month. And that's usually what I'm busy with. And I like gardening. I also really enjoy gardening.
Well, good for you. Being in a social group that's preset on your calendar, you're practicing what you preach.
Yeah,
So
it's awesome.
yeah, so recently you launched a digital well-being program that increases student social engagement and academic focus at Virginia Tech. Can you how's that going?
Yeah, it's going super well. I just got back from another 4 days on campus, giving presentations to the Student Affairs Administration with my colleague there, Lori Fritsch, who's the Assistant Director of the Wellness Department at Virginia Tech. And they have just embraced JOMO with open arms. They actually reached out to me. This is almost 2 years ago now. In their own words, their best and brightest students were coming back to campus languishing before classes even started. This is, very acutely coming out of the
Sure.
COVID-19 isolation.
Hmm.
And what they had internally developed was a workshop called Unwind Offline. And it was going pretty well. But in their own words, they said, we might, at this rate, we might reach 3% of the student population. What we really need is a campus wide digital well-being campaign. And so that's what we at JOMO have helped them co-create there at Virginia Tech. We developed a 4-week digital well-being challenge. There's 73.8% of students that go through our challenge have made a behavior change and intend to continue with that change. So incredible behavior change there, and that's continuing to grow and expand. And also, we've developed sort of a common room activation where we put in phone boxes that have conversation card decks inside and have a bunch of inspirational and educational content related to digital well-being. And so that's expanding out from one major dining hall now into the library, into other common spaces on campus. And so what we've done there and we're modeling there is growing now to multiple campuses. We've got kind of a beautiful pocket happening in the greater Virginia area. We did a training with James Madison University, Wake Forest, University of Virginia, Roanoke College, a whole group of them just the week before last. And really trying to form up a coalition for collegiate digital well-being. That's really my colleague's vision. We at JOMO campus, we're our program, is a for-profit and we're so excited to partner with more and more campuses. But on the academic side, we really also want to just equip within a collegiate way, share resources, et cetera. So kind of doing
Sure.
both of those things in tandem. It's been really exciting to see the impact on students, particularly in terms of social connectedness. Some of the students that went through our challenge, they hadn't really established core friendships yet. It was their first semester on campus. So the challenge really pushed them out of their comfort zones to connect in person. And so some of them formed groups of friends for the very first time. Others reduced their screen time from, in some cases, 7 hours to 3 hours per day on their phones. So really, really significant changes that are helping them reclaim time for what we believe matters most, which is the joyful things in life.
Yeah, yeah. And you're really feeding that part of um so much of the college experience, the higher education experience isn't what you learn in school, it's what you learn at school.
Mm,
So you guys are feeding that part of that
I love
at
that.
growth. Yeah. And I think it's very interesting that I'm very hopeful. I listened to the area of the United States that is embracing this, and I am very hopeful in its proximity to Washington, D.C. when I hear
Yes.
when I hear what you're saying, I'm like, those are exactly who we need to just travel on up to,
Yeah.
And in talking about DC, in February, we saw the CEOs of Meta, TikTok, Snapchat, Discord, and X, formerly known as Twitter. It cracks me up that we still have to explain what X. It's kind of like the artist formerly known as Prince, you know. But we saw them testify before the United States Senate Judiciary Committee, and you have a very interesting, certainly long view on where the growth of these social media companies, et cetera, have taken hold and the effects that they've had on our youth. So I'm wondering, what role of responsibility do you think big tech holds towards our youth? Like what is their responsibility at this point?
I think they absolutely should be held accountable for the harms that they have done to youth, especially knowing the design mechanisms that they put in place from the very beginning, not to, well, I am going to point a finger directly at Stanford's persuasive design lab. I mean, right? This is where most of those UX designers were trained. That's the model that they were trained in, knowingly building platforms that were going to be addictive to any human being, but particularly to a young person whose brain is not fully formed, who hasn't even had the chance yet to decide on their own personal likes and dislikes, right? To form a sense of own their own personhood, their own sense of their own person. um it's interesting to me. I've been talking with a colleague in particular, a friend of mine who's a digital sociologist. She's in Australia, and we often joke. I often say to her, I feel like I'm a vanilla version of myself online. Like there's this sort of sameness that those platforms have all cultivated. We talk about the Instagram face, for example. There absolutely has to be accountability for these things. And it is exciting to me to see these shifts happening. I, as a parent, do really feel for parents, I think, like you, whose children went through that true wild, wild west of the last 10 years of social media just emerging and wading through all of that as parents and children at exactly the same time. I feel grateful that my kids were largely too young to have been a part of that. And I feel grateful that even their friends now are having really thoughtful conversations about the harms and the negative implications of their platforms and calling each other out. Like, let's hang up and hang out, right? Those types of awesome conversations that do happen, or just being like, don't be stupid. Like we're hanging out, like just get off, get off. It's just like it's not worth it. But I think obviously there's a long way to go. But I think what we're starting to see in terms of legal action, and obviously what the action that we saw already this month is exciting to see. And then I would just kind of call out researchers like Jonathan Haidt and Jean Twenge, who are really leading out in these global studies of the adolescent harms, particularly as it relates to social media and smartphone use. And yeah, just incredibly grateful for those people just so publicly doing the work for all of our benefit.
Yeah, yeah, for sure. And I agree with you. So my son, as you and I were just speaking earlier, offline,
Mhm.
my son's 21, and I do feel like that was right in the height of, just as everything was coming at us, and it was like drinking. I mean, I heard an analogy of it's like trying to stop Niagara Falls with a Dixie cup, and that is something that I think the big five there, have proven again and again, they cannot be self-regulated. I mean, we have to put a checks and balances in place. What's frightening to me is, I'm speaking to you in Canada. You and I are neighbors, clearly, globally, but the effects that these companies that exist in, my little corner of the world in California is huge. It's global, and it's the responsibility is too great to just rely upon, individuals to be making single based decisions.
And on that, just the parental controls, like that is
Oh,
a
yeah,
true full-time job. Like that is absolutely, it is unacceptable to pass that along to parents to manage.
100%.
can
100.
100% be designing platforms where the controls are already in place. They're not even called controls. They're just redesigned, right, to
Right.
support.
They just
Yeah.
default to safety
Yeah. The
rather
default,
than rather than open the world to, to a
the world's
12.
most vulnerable.
Exactly, exactly. So that the topic you were talking about how social media has kind of changed the aesthetics for our globe as
Mm,
well. There's a book out that I have not yet read, but I it's on my list. It's called Filter World: How
mm.
Algorithms Flattened Culture. And
I've heard of this book.
yes, it's he speaks very well about how there's a loss of regionality. And I think in the US, we saw it when big box stores came through, and all of a sudden, every strip mall looked the same in America, and there's a loss of regionality in America. And I, I think the speed of technology is having that effect globally. And
Hmm.
you don't want places to lose what makes them special.
Oh yeah. In our family, we actually give our kids extra money to shop in our neighborhood, instead of
Mm,
buying stuff through
lovely.
Amazon and we know we're going to pay a premium, but why did we move to this neighborhood? We moved to this neighborhood for all of those individual shops. If we're not taking
Right?
responsibility for their success and survival, they're not going to
Right.
be there anymore. And that's on us. That is not
Yes.
on them. That is on us as
Right.
consumers. Yeah.
Right. Or
Yeah.
supporting local farmers and agriculture. I mean,
Yeah.
shop the farm stands, shop the farmers
Yeah.
markets, and it's
Yeah. It takes
healthier
extra
anyways.
time. It takes extra time. That's just the reality. But
But it could be one of those standing dates on your social calendar as well.
yes.
And so then it's a twofer,
I
right?
love it.
Yes. So we have to take a short break, but when we come back, I'm going to ask Christina Crook for her healthy screen habit. Did you know anyone in a U.S. state, territory, or tribe who needs suicide or mental health related crisis support, or who has a loved one in crisis, can connect with a trained counselor by calling or texting 988? 988 is the easy to remember number that reaches what is commonly referred to as the Lifeline, a network of more than 200 state and local call centers funded by the U.S. Department of Health and Human Services. Formerly known as the National Suicide Prevention Lifeline, the full name has changed to the 988 Suicide and Crisis Lifeline. 988. It's the 911 for mental health. Okay, I'm speaking with Christina Crook, who has been called the Marie Kondo of digital by Harper's Bazaar. Now, Christina, on every episode of the Healthy Screen Habits podcast, I ask each guest for a healthy screen habit. This is a tip or takeaway that our listeners can put into practice in their own home. Do you have one?
I do. The easiest way to get off tech is to find something better to do and lean into it.
Nice, nice. Just like your rowing or your cross stitch or fill in the blank or going to the farmer's markets.
Or whatever brings your kid joy, right? This is
Mhm.
true for us and for those that we have the privilege of guiding and leading in life. And this is what I want to do for my kids and the kids that are in my life.
Love it. So, as always, you can find a complete transcript of this show and a link to any resources discussed by visiting the show notes for this episode. Do this by going to healthyscreenhabits.org, click the podcast button, and find this episode. Christina, thank you so much for being here today. Just talking to you makes me want to go offline, set social dates, live a little more joyfully.
Um, Amazing. Thank you so much for having me.
For more information, you can find us on Instagram and Facebook at Healthy Screen Habits. Make sure to visit our website, healthyscreenhabits.org, where you can subscribe to the show on Apple Podcasts or via RSS, so you'll never miss an episode. It's free, it's fun, and you get a healthy new screen habit each week. While you're at it, if you found value in this show, we'd appreciate you giving us a quick rating. It really does help other people find us and spread the word of healthy screen habits. Or if you'd simply like to tell a friend, we'd love that too. I so appreciate you spending your time with me this week, and I look forward to learning more healthy habits together.